Welcome to Chess to Impress, and today we're going to talk about another imbalance, which is the king safety imbalance. In chess, king safety is obviously quite important, and generally there are three types of king safety imbalances, each with their own strategy. The first one is opening up lines to the king. Your strategy is to flood your pieces inside towards the king. The second one is when the king is stuck in the center, open the center at all costs. And the third one is the back rank weakness. Use rooks and queens to pressure the back rank and create tactical threats. We have reached this position, and in this position black has very little space while white has wonderful development. How can white open lines to the king? When I say the word development, take a look at this amazing bishop which is on b3, which kind of targets the pawn and indirectly towards the king. The knight is very strong in the center. The other knight can hop on to e4. The bishop controls the dark squares, the c1 and the h6 diagonal. Moreover, queen, if required in the future, can transition like this. So this position is super cool, and what you need to do, like I said, is you need to open lines to the king. Now, how do we open lines to the king? Pause for a moment and then try and think. Alright, so here's what you do. The first move that you play, you can clearly see that this queen is kind of like, is also gasping for space. The queen has only two legit squares. So for example, if I'm able to play my knight to e6 without this pawn being here, without the f7 pawn being here, and if I'm able to play knight e6, the queen is trapped because the queen cannot move on c7 as the knight defends the square. The queen cannot go to b6 because now the bishop's lines open once the knight reaches e6. And of course, if the pawn is not on f7, the pawn on d6 cannot really take our knight on d7, cannot really take our knight on e6 because of queen captures queen, which is a pin on that pawn. So what do we need to do to eliminate this pawn? We need to play bishop captures f7. Now there are two moves possible. Rook captures and king captures. Of course, if rook captures f7, knight e6 is a very nice trap. The queen's gone. There is no way they can protect their queen. All these squares are occupied, right? And if you take, like I explained, queen captures queen, is game over. You lose your most powerful piece. Now comes the most important part of the game. What if the king takes? Now, you might think that if the knight goes to e6, of course, I know I cannot move my queen anywhere, but I can obviously take with the king. Or can you? You actually cannot take with the king. You know why? Because you go there, you play the move, knight to e6, king captures e6, queen d5 check, right? Opening those beautiful lines to the king, exposing the king, king f5, play g4, right? King captures g4, play rook g1, then king h4, then bring your bishop in, which is to play bishop g5, and if the king goes to h5, queen d1 is a checkmate. And like in the game, if the king goes to h3, it's queen to g2 checkmate, right? What a beautiful combination. I might as well show that to you again, right? Bishop captures f7, king captures f7, playing an amazing move. Again, the queen is trapped, so it's pretty much forced. King captures e6, but you should be able to calculate this well in advance. Queen d5 check, king f5, g4, king captures g4, rook to g1, king h4, bishop g5 check, king h5 is met by queen d1, and king h3, which actually happened in the game, is met by queen g2 checkmate, right? So this is how you open some lines to the king. Let's take a look at the new position, the second position in the very important king safety imbalance. Let's take a look at both our kings. Of course, the white king is safe because white at least has a couple of pieces near the king, and the pawn shield is intact, which is not being attacked by any of the black pieces, right? Pawn shield means the pawns which are standing right in front of the king. But the black's pawn shield is not intact because the rook directly or indirectly looks at the king, is like aiming at the king right away. And moreover, like take a look at the other pieces, the queen, the two knights, and the rook on a8. Also the rook on f8, they don't really contribute in defending the black's king. Also our queen is super safe. In the future we can go to h6, our bishop can also like hop into g4, our knight can go to a beautiful central square, our rook can go to d1. Right, so white has a lot of pros as compared to black, right? And now the question is, how do you expose the king? To be honest, this is a simple checkmate, right? Think for yourself. I'll give you a hint. It is white to play, expose the king, or do whatever, open lines to the king, doesn't matter. White to play and checkmate in 5 moves. Pause the video, think for a minute, and you should definitely come up with an amazing answer. All right, so the correct move in this position with white is to directly go in for the kill. Rook captures g7. If the king goes there, right, if the king goes to h8, then there's no chance. Queen h6 followed by queen h7 would be a forced checkmate. So king is pretty much forced to capture the rook, and then you play the move queen g5. Of course, the king has to go to h8 and then play another amazing move, queen f6, so the king can be forced to come to g8, and then you give a nice check on g1, which is nothing short of a checkmate. Okay, they have a move like just to block, but that is just for the namesake. And once rook g4 is played, the king is done forever. Let's take a look at the third position. This position again is an amazing position, because take a look at white's pieces and take a look at white's king. White's king is on g1, whereas all the other pieces, as you can see, the rook on e1, the queen on d1, the bishop on a4, the knight on a3, the bishop on c1, and the rook on a1, they do not really contribute in defending the white's king, whereas our bishops are super strong. We have all the amenities, we have all our pieces directed, rerouted, and enforced along the way to hit the white king. So let's see. First, what do we do? It's always a rule of a thumb to apply pressure. This position is about equal, to be honest, but still we have more resources to deploy towards the white king. So what do? We apply more pressure. The queen's in danger against the wrath of the rook, so you play queen h4. Alright, a basic move like g3 would have been fine, although it creates weakness. I mean, it creates a light squared weakness for us to exploit in the future, but a move like g3 would have been super solid, because these two pawns support the g3 pawn, the pawn on f2 and h2. But what happens is, when you usually apply pressure, opponents tend to make a mistake, which is exactly what happened in the game. White played the move h3, which is like saying, okay, you know what, just come and hit me, right? Which is just an open invitation for black pieces to go in for the kill. Of course, right, the king is exposed, our knights and bishops are going to flow in, so without a shadow of a doubt, we just go ahead and capture the pawn on h3. Pawn captures h3, queen captures h3, and there is a mate incoming, right? There is a mate incoming, like bishop h2, bishop g3, queen h2, and queen f2 checkmate. So they play the move bishop e3, and then we follow it up, bishop h2 check, king h1, knight captures e3, f captures d3, and then all you have to do is give a discovered check with the bishop and control the f2 square. Bishop g3 check, king has to move, queen h2 check, king has to go, and finally queen f2 is a smooth checkmate. Right? Observe this pattern again and never forget. Once the king is on h1, all you need to do is control the f2 square, but right now the bishop was controlling it, so first we remove it with a threat of checkmating on g2. So they're pretty much forced to take with either the bishop or the rook. Let's say even if they take it with the rook, you need to like shield your queen against the rook's attack, give a discovered check, king hops to g1, then you play a move queen h2. Again, there are two pieces attacking it, and there ain't no way white can save the checkmate, right? King to f1 and queen f2, a very beautiful checkmate. So king safety is super important. So what do we need to do during the beginning of the game? We need to make sure we can castle, or we should castle as soon as we can. There should be some pieces like knights are great defenders of the pawn shield. If you can keep a knight near the king, or maybe a couple of pieces, a bishop and a knight, or maybe like a queen, then maybe your king is safe. If you just leave your king exposed, like in this position, wherein all the other pieces are concentrated on the queen side of the board, then yes, then you're gonna be in deep trouble, as the shield above the king is definitely gonna break, right? And nobody wants their shield to break. Alright, let's take a look at the fourth position in the king safety imbalance. This is a very short game between the world champion Alexander Alakine and an unknown player by the name Vasek. So let's see what happened between Alakine versus Vasek. It's a 11 move game, short game. Let's see what happens if you fail to protect your king at all times, and if you just keep the king in the center. E4, E6, D4, D5, the French defense, win-hour variation. Bishop B4 is the win-hour variation. Very sharp, very accurate. White plays the move Bishop D3, which leads to Bishop captures C3, B captures C3. And this is actually, even though it might look like White has double pawns, but there is great potential for White to stop the Black king from castling. So you usually do not take this quick. You need to like take accurate measures, like first you need to develop castle and maybe then take. Okay, h6 again. I do not understand this move. This is simply a waste of time, right? You need to play knight f6 right away, and bishop a3 comes in. Okay, at least play knight e7 right now so you can castle, but okay, knight d7 again. I mean, I can understand knight d7. One of the ideas maybe to play c5 and then go play a move like queen a5 or queen c7. I can understand that. Queen e2, d captures e4. Again, a bad move. You're kind of inviting white to, you're kind of helping white to open lines. Bishop captures e4, knight gf6, bishop d3, b6 was played, and then because of this, right, the king is trapped. So right, the king has no escape squares, so white simply checkmates by playing queen captures e6, pawn captures e6, which is forced because if you play queen e7, queen e7's checkmate. So pawn captures e6, which results in bishop to g6 checkmate. We call this checkmate as a Borden's mate. Right, amazing. I literally love this mate, right? Take a look at that. This is so secretive. Like, I mean, knight g6 is followed by bishop d3. I mean, okay, black might think that white has played this move because he does not want to give up the bishop pair, and once b6 is played, boom, queen e6, f e6, bishop g6. What a way to checkmate your opponent. I mean, you'll just go home with a big smile on your face. I love it. Next position. Let's take a look. This is a position again between Alexander Alakine and Peter Petrovich. Alexander Alakine was always a superb attacker. He knew how to utilize all these resources. He always used to coordinate with his pieces very nicely, and as a result of which he was able to achieve these amazing patterns which resulted in great mates. So knight d3 was first played, and then of course, I mean, king g1 would have been a better idea, or maybe like king f1 would have been a better idea, but irrespective, it's still bad for white because the king is exposed, the king is in the middle. But white plays the move king g3, which results in an immediate loss. Can black take the queen after can white take the queen after black plays knight to d4? What an amazing move. Right, this is so good, right? Super amazing move. Now let's take a look at these. There are two things that white can play: pawn takes and knight takes. For example, if knight captures, then bishop e5 is coming in, and if you play king h3, knight f2 followed by, okay, king h4, queen check, or something like that, and then win the queen, right? So that is definitely not coming in. So basically what black needs to do is black thinks, okay, all right, might as well just take the queen. Black captures the queen, and there comes checkmate in 3. Pause the video, think for yourself, how can black checkmate in 3 moves? Alright, welcome back. Let's see how black can do so. Knight captures f5 is the first move. King to g4 was played because, again, king h3 cannot be played because of knight f2 checkmate. So king g4 was played, which resulted in the move h5. Again, if you play the move king g5, bishop f6 is a classic checkmate. And if you go play king h3, which happened in the game, knight f2 was a checkmate. So that's all about king safety imbalance. Always remember, right? Always remember, king safety imbalance is obviously quite important. Generally, there are 3 types of king safety imbalances, each with their own strategy. The first one is opening up lines to the king, wherein your strategy is to flood your pieces in. The second thing is when the king is stuck in the center. When the king is stuck in the center, you need to open the center at all costs. The third thing is the back rank weakness. When there is a back rank weakness, use the rooks and your queens to pressure the back rank and create tactical threats. This is Chess to Impress signing off. See you soon. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you may. Appreciate this very much.